Paul Pelosi, the husband of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, was apparently violently assaulted in their San Francisco home. We're gonna give you the details as we know them right now. Bear in mind, this has just happened, and so the details are limited. We know that he was taken to the hospital early today. Pelosi's office say that he was assaulted by an attacker who broke into the Pelosi home. We know that he's 82 years old. Just bear that in mind for Paul Pelosi. He was attacked by a guy with a hammer. We also found out as time passed this morning that the Pelosi home had been specifically targeted. And then we found out that the assailant apparently shouted, "Where is Nancy?" as he broke into the home and attacked her husband. The assailant is apparently in custody. Motivation for the attack is under investigation. Mr. Pelosi was taken to the hospital where he's receiving excellent medical care, they say, and is expected to make a full recovery. Bearing in mind he's being attacked with a hammer, which is just devastating. It's the stuff of horror movies we can't even imagine. Hopefully he will fully recover. We have been given some indication about the motivation for this, and it's not difficult to imagine that the husband of the Speaker of the House might be attacked for political reasons. That said, we're also coming off of a week where Marco Rubio made bold claims about why one of his canvassers was attacked that turned out not to be true. So while it seems incredibly likely and the evidence so far does point to an explicit political motivation, let's also bear in mind that we do not know everything about this and information can change, especially once you're out of the immediate aftermath of a crime like this. That said, Brett, what do you think?
For all the soulless people who follow the news, this is awesome news, sort of. At least they feel alive. There's so many people right now who are hoping one of two things happen, depending on their political proclivities. People on the right are hoping it was some immigrant who recently got let out of jail for assault, only to go to the home of Nancy Pelosi and beat the crap out of her husband. And for people who are hoping that this is yet another attack by the people on the right, inspired by the words of the man in the halls of Congress yelling, "Where's Nancy?" Trying to hurt her, maim her, abduct her. A lot of people are salivating for that to be the case. Decent human beings across the world have the ability to think it is bad that Nancy Pelosi and her husband continue to stoke the fires that power the elites, but also don't want Paul Pelosi to be attacked by a hammer. I'm in that school of thought. I fear that the people who are ginned up by the January 6th messaging are the ones responsible for going up and assaulting Paul Pelosi and looking for Nancy. That's what that looks like. But in the event that that was a misreported thing, I hope that everyone in the world reserves judgment until they have absolute confirmation as the motivations of the attacker.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. We don't know. The reference to "Where's Nancy" could be misheard. It could be misreported. God only knows. We honestly don't know. Again, we're also not. We're not stupid. Like, it's possible that it was a political motivation. It's possible that this guy went in there not looking for Paul, but looking for Nancy. It is possible at this point. I would say if I had a pie chart of all of the likelihoods of explanations, the single biggest slice is this guy wanted to murder Nancy Pelosi with a hammer.
Yes.
If I had to guess, he broke into the home to assassinate the Democratic Speaker of the House. We do not know for sure. Perhaps by the time we're on the power panel on the Young Turks, we'll know more. But it seems entirely likely that this was someone. Who knows, Brett? You did a good job of sketching out. There are potentially different groups that this could represent, but that likely the Democratic Speaker of the House is being targeted for assassination in the 2 weeks leading up to the midterms. Midterms where there has been a lot of talk about political violence and extremism and the death of democracy, or the impending murder plot against democracy. So we'll see. I don't want to jump to any more baseless speculation than I guess I already have, but I'm a little bit worried to see what some are going to say about this. Now, like, this is the sort of thing where if the most likely explanation turns out to be true, which it has not been confirmed yet, it's the sort of thing that perhaps could lead individuals or a group to stop and take a second to think about the rhetoric, where their movement is going. Instead you are going to be told by the craziest people on the internet that this was a false flag. That's my prediction. Again, this is just the speculation part of our talk.
That's true. That's something I did not think about. I only thought the depravity went so low, but John has pulled out the bottom of that barrel and found an entire prepper den of insanity below it.
Yeah. Now, we do have some immediate responses to this attack. Karine Jean-Pierre, press secretary for President Joe Biden, says the president is praying for Paul Pelosi and for Speaker Pelosi's whole family. He is also very glad that a full recovery is expected. Representative Pramila Jayapal, who was threatened in her home, you might recall, like maybe 6 weeks ago, a guy apparently had a gun outside of her home. Says that Speaker Pelosi was very sympathetic to the need to get additional security for members, that she seemed to understand the new threat that these forces present. And in a tweet, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell wrote, horrified and disgusted by the reports that Paul Pelosi was assaulted in his and Speaker Pelosi's home last night. Grateful to hear that Paul is on track to make a full recovery and that law enforcement, including our stellar Capitol Police, are on the case. That is a good tweet that was not needlessly undercut with a lot of nonsense. So good. Those are the statements that I've chosen to focus on at this point. I am very worried about what other ones will come out.
Yep.
Anyway,
and I agree with additional security for members of Congress until we solve the problem of everyone being a little more psycho than normal. Yeah. When it comes to being radicalized by things that have to do with politics, this threat of violence layer that is banked on by members of the right is absolutely positively un-American. If you want to call it American, it's like the equivalent of being Amish when it comes to America. You can't say that because we were founded after a revolution that everything since then has to be bathed in the blood of patriots. You just can't do that. And so I also am pulling for Paul Pelosi to make a full recovery outside this window where everybody is focused on him. I hope he gets back up on his feet, and then we can get back to making it illegal for him to make insider trades.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. Him being attacked doesn't mean that we don't have the same policy issues with his wife in her position as a leader in the Democratic Party, of course. By the way, I'll also remind you, I don't remember if there was any political motivation that was ever established in this, but Representative Karen Bass's home was actually broken into recently as well. I don't know if that was an explicitly political thing, but I don't know. I would prefer not to even have the building blocks of a pattern in this way. I don't want Pramila Jayapal to be threatened in that way. I don't want right-wing weirdos stalking AOC as she walks around the Capitol. I'd like to have none of those. How about that? Doesn't seem like too much to ask for.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.